Go ahead, Mayor.
There's some formalities we just can't do without. Banging of the gavel to start this off. Our second virtual meeting, our first being today. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to ask for your understanding and patience. This is all new to us. Today went off without a glitch. We've already had a few little technical difficulties tonight, but we're looking forward to hearing from all of you. First on our agenda is public comment. And I just want to remind everybody of the rules of decorum. Please be respectful, no name calling. And especially in these days of the COVID, try to remember to be kind. We're all here to work together and help one another out. So the very first speaker I have listed is Steph Mendel.
Can you hear me? This is Steph Mendel, 3225 Oak Grove Circle. I'll start out by thanking you all for taking action this afternoon on a couple of issues in response to the public health crisis caused by COVID-19. Taking action to soften the financial impact to families of the increase in residential water usage during this time makes a lot of sense. It also makes a lot of sense to financially assist families living in hotels, but much more needs to be done. Most Raleigh residents are consumed by the impact of the coronavirus on their health and on their pocketbooks. Most of us are too busy trying to figure out how to make a living now, worrying about getting sick, distracted by trying to homeschool our children and trying to help our neighbors, to be interested in or concerned about rezoning requests and similar issues. Consequently, I'm asking Council to consider taking several actions. First of all, focus on the immediate basic needs of Raleigh residents for food, shelter, and health care during this time. Let's work more closely with the county to provide shelter for our homeless population and the housing insecure, not just because it's the right thing to do, but also in order to further contain the spread of the virus. Second, focus on the needs of our first responders and their families. Other cities have procured empty hotel rooms for employees who must deal directly with the public to use when they're off shift, allowing them the peace of mind that comes from knowing they aren't taking the virus home to infect their families. Let's adopt these kinds of innovative solutions here in Raleigh. Third, defer all rezoning requests and non-urgent matters until June at the earliest so that the public doesn't have to be further stressed about public hearings, and so as not to exclude those without access to or comfort with innovative technology solutions for participating in virtual meetings. Lost time can be made up by scheduling meetings in July and August when Council traditionally doesn't meet. Lastly, revisit recent funding decisions given our new economic reality. For example, let's not buy the most expensive bus shelters and instead use the savings to help families facing job losses and housing insecurity. Let's halt work on a new civic campus. Let's defer decisions about major expenditures until we have a better handle on what future revenue streams are going to look like. It's time to adopt an austerity budget approach and focus on the must-haves rather than the nice-to-haves. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Richard Johnson.
Richard Johnson, 3225 Oak Grove Circle. People in Raleigh, across our country and throughout the world, are suffering from the effects of the COVID-19 virus. It is wreaking havoc on our healthcare system and on our economy. The damage is unprecedented, and it will likely take years for us to recover. Now is the time to really focus and prioritize our efforts, including the efforts and programs of the city. Clearly, the city's revenue collection will be down at the same time that many Raleigh residents will be in need of more support. We need to think carefully about where and how we are spending our scarce resources and where and how we can work in public-private partnerships to maximize them. One great example of a successful public-private partnership was our CACs. They were started under the administration of Clarence Leitner, Raleigh's only African-American mayor to date. They were formed to give people of color and marginalized communities a voice in city affairs. For more than 50 years, CACs throughout Raleigh helped the city communicate with residents about important issues. that ranged from city budget, parks projects, stormwater issues, and yes, also to rezoning requests. For more than 2 years, we've had to listen to Councilor Nicole Stewart charge that anyone who disagreed with her was either afraid, simply didn't understand, or is a racist. Yet she conspired in a back room with Sage Martin, Marianne Baldwin, David Knight, Patrick Bufkin, and Jonathan Melton to destroy our CACs without public notice, without public engagement, and without any replacement. What was she afraid of? What were y'all afraid of? And why couldn't she or any other councilor member who supported this travesty ever answer the many questions that were raised about the relative cost of a consultant, or even when this will happen? Y'all still haven't. You still haven't answered these questions. It's clear that spending money and staff time right now on consultants to improve public engagement is wasteful and unnecessary. Bring back the CACs and let them continue the job that they were doing. We need them now more than ever during this time of crisis. We can work together to improve them, but we don't need to spend our taxpayer dollars on consultants to tell us how to do what we already know how to do. Don't be afraid. Do the right thing. And Mayor, I've heard you 4 times today say we should be kind. Where was your kindness when you conspired with these other councilors behind closed doors to get rid of the CACs? Thank you.
Thank you. We next have Douglas Johnston. I just wanted to make a note here that you will be automatically cut off at 3 minutes, and I apologize for that. If you're in mid-sentence, it's the way the system works, and that's the way the timer is. So anyhow, Mr. Johnston.
Thank you. I'm Douglas Johnston. I live at 120 Forest Road. I'm very enthusiastic about Dix Park and particularly Spring Hill, which I'm informed that when I say slide 1, the first slide will appear. These parks, it has been said, have been the lifeblood of activity during this crisis. Much is uncertain about the next months. I think cancellations and postponements are likely to be a way of life and probably the easy part of adjusting to this new reality. Slide 2. But when we get to the other side of the crisis, there'll be wrenching debates about what we can afford. It's going to be some time before we have a really clear roadmap, and our manager and finance officer will see to it that adjustments are made and debt is moderate, probably as we have now a fraction of our general fund budget and a fraction of what state statutes allow. Slide 3, please. More worrying to me is what may happen to our concept of what we can be, our capacity, what Raleigh is and is capable of. There are many non-financial alternatives moving forward. I think this is a time where we look closely to the manager and the finance officer. My experience, as some of you know, was 30 years at the local government commission, and though it didn't make me an expert, I certainly know what's doable a lot of times, and it's informed my judgment. I think we can still have a moonshot, an ambitious recovery, coming out stronger, as the mayor has said, housing and parks included. Moon's still there. Moon rises at 10:34 p.m. It's a super moon. I hope you'll see it tonight and read some of my emails to follow. I think they'll be brief. I promise you they'll be infrequent, and I hope they'll be useful. Thanks again.
Thank you, Mr. Johnston. Next, we have Molly Stewart.
Okay, I think I've been unmuted. Molly Stewart, Morningstar Law Group, 421 Fayetteville Street. I represent the owners of 11 parcels of land. I'm sorry, I should have a slide up. Can you see that?
We cannot see the slide. Oh.
Okay.
Starting to share it now.
Perfect. Okay, in any event, So these 11 parcels of land comprise about 227 acres of land. They're located near the intersection of Tryon Road and Dover Farm Road. It's located within the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the city of Raleigh, outside the corporate limits, which extend to, for the most part, to the north side of Tryon Road in that location. There they are. So these are the 11 parcels that skinny one up at the top there, that fronts right on Tryon Road, and across the street from that is the city. These parcels are covered by the Swift Creek Land Management Plan, which is the subject of an interlocal agreement among all the jurisdictions that are in that area. We understand that the city has no plans to annex this land or to provide utility services due to the Swift Creek Land Management Plan, and this is almost entirely designated as rural under that plan. The request is to relinquish the city's extraterritorial jurisdiction over this property back to Wake County. And this evening, the request is simply to schedule that request for a public hearing. The timing of this request was intended to go with the Swift Creek Comprehensive Plan Amendment, CP 120, that's on the agenda. I understand that may not be heard this evening, but the two matters do go together. And so I wanted to get this in front of you now that you have that information in your packet to consider together as they move forward.
Thank you, Ms. Stewart. Robin, what is the proper protocol for this?
Well, this is one of those types of requests that used to come before you on requests and petitions of citizens when you had to sign up so that the staff could have some sort of input. I see Ken is here now. There is a process to go through. I would not suggest that you can't accomplish it tonight. What you could do, Ken can chime in, is authorized to move forward with the request and then go through the process and come back.
Ken, can you unmute?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Great. I was agreeing. I think staff would like to work with the applicant and with the county because obviously relinquishing this from our ETJ means that the jurisdiction passes back to the county. We would like to work with the staff at the county and let them know about this process. And typically, although the statutes are more specific about how you add ETJ as opposed to dispose of it, following a similar procedure that would involve a public hearing to adopt an ordinance to relinquish the ETJ is probably the right procedure, and we can provide a more complete report on how to undertake this process at your next meeting.
Okay, well, Ken, then you will be in touch with Ms. Stewart.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Right, hold on one
Okay.
second, David. You will be in touch with her? Okay. Councillor Cox?
Yes, I'd just like to understand what the motivation is. What's the reason for the request?
Okay, I believe I'm unmuted now. Just because this is low density under the Swift Creek Land Management Plan, which is the intent for how to develop it, it just makes more sense to be outside of that extraterritorial jurisdiction to develop everything under the county's regulations rather than the city's.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, we will move on to Calla Wright. Ms. Wright?
Mayor,
Yes.
Mayor, I had a follow-up question, if I may.
I'm sorry, I did not see you. Okay, sorry, Patrick.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm not sure Ms. Stewart answered the question. Of course, relinquishing the property from our ETJ lets it be developed under the county regulations, but that doesn't explain why. What's the difference? And maybe the staff can help us in this report, but it didn't sound like a responsive answer to me.
Sure, and that's partly my apologies for that. I don't have the details on that this evening, given that this absolutely would go to a public hearing in the future. It's something we've been working with staff on to move forward, and our focus has really been on that comprehensive plan piece of it. So I can gather that information for you for that next meeting.
Well then, Mayor, I think I'd like to just hold off action on this item. Instead of moving it forward, I'd like to get the information before we move forward.
Well, let's let staff work with them and then let staff come back with a report for us. So we better understand that.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. Next is Calla Wright.
Hi, I'm Calla Wright, 613 Cooper Road, Raleigh. I'm here again to discuss the reused wastewater tower, COVID-19, the disparities, disproportionalities that impact the Black citizens here in Southeast Raleigh. As you know, the reused water tower joins my property, and the stormwater runoff continues to create harmful pollution that impacts our environment and the air we breathe, the loud generator, and soil erosion. Number two, COVID-19 greatly has impacted our Black community. That's a national epidemic, and the startling data that presented today across the country was really alarming. And the data for Wake County was not presented, but they did have the North Carolina data. And I believe that these issues will show that the Black community here in Raleigh are having a difficult time. And I believe it dates back to the Jim Crow era. Housing segregation, disproportionalities, low-paying jobs, not having the quality of life, lack of adequate health care, transportation access to foods, and the need for more greenways in our area so that we can exercise. And it's imperative that as elected officials that you take these issues and concerns about the disproportionalities and quality, the lack of quality of life to heart to make some changes so we're not continuously talking about the same things. Also, there are many stores. We need more stores with healthy foods. We have more you've licensed more of the stores to sell alcoholic beverages as opposed to selling healthy foods. We have the vapor stores here, but the lack of access to healthy foods at many of our citizens here do not have access to transportation to get these foods. So in closing, I challenge each of you as elected officials to represent and to understand the issues that many of our Black citizens face in Southeast Raleigh. And through that, I believe you should be able to look at life through our lens by having extensive training and diversity. We've talked about this before, but please include your staff, include the city manager, and many of those people who actually make the decisions that impact our citizens here. But please make sure that you address the disproportionalities and the disparities that impact the life here in Southeast Raleigh for our Black citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wright. Next, we have Geraldine Alahelmi.
So we had Geraldine on just a second ago, and I've seen she has lost connection. She may still be watching, but she lost telephone connection, it seems like. If I see her pop back on, maybe we can get back to her.
So what I'll do is when I get to the end of the list, I'll come back and ask, okay?
That's great. Your next person, though, also seems to be on, but with no audio connection.
Okay,
So-
that is Helen Tart.
Yes, Mayor.
So no audio connection.
Nope, she seems to be watching, but no audio.
Okay, Helen, if there's an issue that you would like to speak about, if you could email us, we'll make sure we get that.
I think she just connected.
She just connected?
Yep, Helen, do we have you?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Helen, you might need to mute one part of that. You seem to now be over audio connected.
Okay, sorry. I have you on TV too.
Oh, that's great. We got you now.
Okay.
Okay. Helen Tart, 611 Monroe Drive, Raleigh, 27604. I hope you're all doing well in these trying times. After all that's been going on, I hope you will be able to think back to the January 7th public hearing on text change TC 719 infill subdivisions and recombinations. When I spoke in support of this text change, attempting to protect the character of existing neighborhoods, I was disturbed by a comment made by one of you. It implied that the new people moving in were more important than those residents that have spent decades in the city of Raleigh, that the existing residents should give up their neighborhoods because the new people moving in need places to live. Of course, that is simply not true or fair. There are plenty of places to build housing for the people moving into the city without bulldozing existing houses and trees to put up townhomes on every corner. Places that would be improved by a mix of residential, office, and retail. The empty Kmart lot on Western Boulevard, for example, might hold 10,000 people in high rises right next to the new bus rapid transit line. Imagine how many high rises you could put along Capitol Boulevard between the Beltline and Split and even beyond. Capitol is also slated for bus rapid transit. There's no shortage of ugly roads and empty commercial lots in Raleigh that could be developed into housing, and many of these roads are getting bus rapid transit. There are things you can do to encourage that growth. You could give permitting in those areas priority so construction doesn't take as long. Or even better, the city could buy the land and build the development to make the housing affordable in those areas. You're all set to have an affordable housing bond. Instead of giving that money to a developer or a nonprofit builder, use it yourself to make sure it stays affordable. At least see if I'm right. Have staff identify those areas, maybe partnering with the Chamber of Commerce to do so, then judge for yourself. I urge you to focus the city's affordable housing efforts on those areas while helping existing residents find ways to preserve their neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tart. Next, we have Natalie Liu. And I understand there's a presentation with this as well.
Yes, so wait for the slides to get up. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
My name is Natalie Liu. Slide one. My name is Natalie Liu. I live on Ebenezer Church Road in Raleigh. Given the current pandemic situation, places to gather socially have closed for good reason. People are seeking ways to maintain a free feeling of normalcy by exercising outdoors, walking, jogging, and biking on our network of parks and greenways. Slide two. Before the pandemic, our greenways and parks were highly used. Slide three. Some like Umstead State Park to the point where the parking lots are overflowing. Slide four. And in the pandemic, and the usage of these areas has increased so dramatically to the point where most of these parks have had to be closed off because they are so crowded. I think this pandemic has given us a glimpse of what our parks and greenways will be like as our area grows, overcrowded. So we need to protect what we currently have and plan for the future. Slide five. As you can see from this picture, Umstead State Park is a major connection for the Raleigh Greenway system to the greenways west of our area. Of concern now is a plan for Wakestone Corporation to create a new quarry pit on land next to Umstead State Park and this major greenway, land deeded to this, in part to the city of Raleigh, the Oddfellows Tract. I'm not against quarries, but a quarry in this location is not the best use of public land. Slide six. Oddfellows and 286 East are on the state park's critical acquisition list. Slide seven. Wakestone's current quarry is on private land. Wakestone wants to keep this quarry site open in order to operate a brand new quarry pit on the Oddfellows Tract. Slide eight. Per the original agreement, quarry operations were to conclude by 50 years after operations started. This means the current quarry was supposed to be done by 2031. Slide 9. In March 2018, the original lease agreement was changed without public input or public notice, as the word sooner was changed to later. This change does not make any sense, as it essentially gives Wakestone permanent use of this land. They can quarry Oddfellows, expand into 286, and the current quarry will never have to close. Slide 10. The state park system has first right of refusal of the quarry pit area. The state park could use this readily land now. We should not be forced to wait several more generations for something we need now due to administrative change that occurred without public notice or public input. That was a sneaky thing to do. Having a state park in our midst puts less strain on the city to create parks, money that can be used elsewhere as we know. We should support the state park and not squander it. Slide 11. Please ask NCDEQ to reinstate the sunset clause. Ask the two people on the Raleigh City Council appointed to the RDU Airport Authority Board to speak out against the quarry. Protect Unsub State Park by speaking up or taking actions to protect the land that is deeded to you. Support the state park system's critical acquisition desire for Oddfellows and 286 East, and ask Wakestone to perform a flood modeling study to determine the impact of the proposed new quarry pit on flooding downstream. As we all know, Crabtree Creek floods a lot. Thank you very much, and I look forward to having no quarry next to Umstead.
Thank you, Ms. Liu. Next on the list, we have Jermaine Palmer.
I do not think we were able to reach him, but I believe we can go on to your next.
Okay, that would be Erwin Traeger.
Actually, I do not see him here any longer.
Joseph Henry.
I do not have him either, but we may have Geraldine as a call-in user. So let me circle back to that, that user.
I'm here.
Thank you.
I'm here.
Geraldine? Okay, we do have her.
Yes, I'm here.
So Geraldine,
yes,
you have 3 minutes to speak, and you will be timed. So thank you for joining us. Sorry, and thank you for your patience.
You're welcome, and thank you all. Want to say hello to everybody. Glad everybody's staying safe. Am I starting now? Okay, glad everybody's staying safe. I want to bring to the attention of an issue that will be ongoing. First of all, I want to say thank you for, I don't know exactly everything that has been done. I do know that the county put in something yesterday for people who are in hotels, and I understand that the city will be putting something in place. But I want to bring to the attention of something that I'm running into as a community-based organization. We just did a survey of about 150, 25 to 50 families. And what families talk about most is their fear of not being able to pay, being evicted after this crisis is over. And I pray God that it's over soon. But what they're saying is that, one, a lot of these families have been laid off work or deferral or whatever. They don't have any income coming in. They cannot sign up, number one, because the system is down. Right now it's costing them more money because children are out of school. They're having to feed them more. Some are having to drive further distance. So gas and food is costing more. Not everybody's on food stamps. So the fear that people have is that when this is over, we know that landlords may get a little break, but they're going to have to pay that money back. So landlords are going to turn around and ask tenants for that money. And what they're afraid of is that they won't have that money, and which will lead to another epidemic of evictions. So I'm asking the council, if you will, and I know that things are short, and I know that money's not coming in, and I know that you're not getting the revenue, but I am asking you to please consider putting aside some money for tenants or landlords who have landlords, because we don't want to be faced with another crisis with epidemic of people who have been working and lost their jobs at no fault of their own. So I'm asking you to look at allotting money for those families, whether it be to other nonprofits or whether it be to the landlords themselves. So I hope this is something that you can get done for the sake of people citizens who, like I said, are not working at no fault of their own. So thank you so much, and I hope you all have a good evening, and please stay safe.
Thank you very much. For the record, we approved today two $50,000 grants, one for Passage Home, the other for Triangle Family Services, to assist families and individuals living in hotels so they won't be evicted and become homeless. We also have been working with the county with Oak City Cares. The county is the lead agency on homelessness and housing and human services. And so we will continue to work with them, but as a partner. And we also are looking for guidance from the state. So that's where we are at this point. Thank you for speaking with us.
Mayor, I may have Erwin back. Can we give him a try real quick?
Of course.
Erwin, do I have you back on the line? Nope.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Next, we have matters scheduled for a public hearing. And there are 5 issues scheduled for public hearing that the district representatives have asked to be deferred. These items are the Comprehensive Plan Amendment, CP 120, Swift Creek Watershed. Comprehensive Plan Amendment, CP 1119, West Morgan Street. Rezoning case Z120 at 2634 Oberlin Road on both sides of the Greenway Avenue. Rezoning Z2319 at Strickland Road, and then rezoning Z3919, 1031 North Rogers Lane, near the intersection of North Rogers Lane and New Bern Avenue. Do I hear a motion formally to defer these until the May 5th meeting?
I move for deferral of these items until May 5th.
Okay, that was Councilor Branch, and then Jonathan seconded this motion. All in favor, show of hands, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, clerk, that is unanimous. Thank you. Staff is also recommending that the following public hearing be deferred due to new federal guidelines, and that is the Consolidated Plan on City Housing and Community Development. They're asking that this be deferred to June 2nd. Do I have a motion?
I move of deferral of the consolidation plan for Raleigh Housing and Community Development until June 2nd.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Councilor Cox second that. Clerk, do I have, let's vote. All in favor? Okay,
Aye.
that's unanimous. Thank you. I was chuckling because I'm watching different screens. Sage is raising his hand, and David said he seconded it. So I'm just trying to get this all straight myself. Thank you. If you want to second, you can speak out or raise your hand. I'll do my best to recognize you. Okay, the following public hearings. Oh, so for anybody on the phone, for any of the hearings that were deferred, we will be hearing those on May 5th and the last one on June 2nd. Okay? All right, the following public hearings are going to be conducted now. One is a public nuisance abatement and property liens. Do we have a staff report on this?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We do not have a staff report. We have staff available to answer any questions, and unless there's an update that I'm unaware of, we don't have anyone signed up to speak. So what I would suggest is that you open and close the public hearings and see if there's any comments, and we're available to answer any questions.
Okay, we'll open the public hearing. Does anybody have any questions, want to speak on this? Councilor Cox?
Yeah, I was just wondering if anyone has expressed any concerns about these liens given the COVID-19 situation that we're in. And I was wondering if we needed to do this tonight or if we should hold off on it for a month or so.
We have not received any questions or concerns from the property owners that are subject to the public hearing tonight.
Okay.
All right, and all of the property owners were notified. And Madam,
yes.
Mayor, can we read the addresses just for the record?
Could you read that?
Okay, 1712 Dallas Street, 1227 Falls Noose Road, 1206 East Hargett Street, and 2101 Hillock Drive.
Just one correction, that was 1227 Falls Church Road.
Okay, I'm sorry, thank you. Falls Church Road.
Councilor Melton?
Yeah, I understand some of the concerns, just wanting to make sure that we're being sympathetic and that everyone was aware. I'm looking through this, though, and it looks like even the most recent deadline for compliance in all of these was 4 months ago. So it seems like this has been in the pipeline for a while, and everyone seems to be aware of what's going on. So I just wanted to point that out.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, I'm going to close the hearing. Do we have a motion? Don't be afraid to speak up, people.
I move for approval.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Councilor Stewart, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Councilor Martin is opposed, the rest in favor. For the clerk. Okay. Thank you. Next item is the 2/3 general obligation bond anticipation note sale. I have 2 people who have signed up in support to speak on this. So what I'm going to do is, we don't have a staff report, do we?
No, we do not. Just staff is available to answer questions.
Okay. I'm going to open the hearing, and I have here Melanie Ennis and Joselle Torres, who have both asked to speak on this in support. Melanie, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here. So my name is Melanie Annis, 2520 Albemarle Avenue. With the current situation, it's clear how important public parks and spaces are for our mental and physical health. I'm speaking to you in support of a multi-use court at the Tarboro Road Community Center to be used by Raleigh bicycle polo and other alternative sports such as roller hockey, soccer, futsal, and roller derby. I am speaking to ask the members of council to use the funds from the 2/3 general obligation bond for this multi-use court at Tarboro Road. Bike polo is an all-inclusive sport played with mixed gender teams. Raleigh Bike Polo began and remains an inclusive club that encourages people of all genders, ages, and orientations. Raleigh has been playing bike polo for the better part of a decade, and we've run up against the limits of our facilities for many years now. It is a struggle to host larger events. Just this year, we missed hosting one of the world's most famous tournaments that highlights women and women-identified players in our sport, Ladies Army, because of our lack of permanent courts. That's not to say that we don't represent Oak City. Raleigh Bike Polo has hosted tournaments on a local level, as well as a regional level with players from all over the East and Southeast regions. We are a part of a greater community of polo players nationwide, as well as internationally. As a club, we consistently reach out to our community. We have a fleet of loaner bikes and equipment for curious people. We've demoed at SparkCon for the past 2 years. We frequently partner with Oaks and Spokes, our local cycling nonprofit and advocacy group, during their annual festival and community events. We currently practice twice weekly at Tarboro Road and help maintain the facilities we use, as well as the bikes of any passersby that need a tune-up. A multi-use court at Tarboro Road can expand our club and provide us the ability to host bigger tournaments and grow our community. This court can also be shared with other alternative sports looking for a home in Raleigh. Several other cities have had success implementing alternate court use. For example, prior to providing Seattle, Washington with a multi-use court, Seattle's Board of Commissioners ran an 18-month test pilot program, concluding it would benefit the entire city by being more inclusive of alternate and healthy activities. The cities with infrastructure in place have hosted major tournaments, attracting players from all over the world and encouraging local tourism. I would not have put so much effort into a little-known and obscure sport if I didn't love this community with every bone in my body. The polo community has given me so much as far as fellowship, competition, and a family. In Raleigh, our goal is to keep growing our club and providing the same support it's given me after all these years. Thank you for your time and stay healthy.
Oh, thank you very much. I want to ask about time. Are we keeping time on this?
No, Mayor, these are not timed.
Okay, I think we need to, because it's what, 8 minutes total per side?
We can start that. Robin?
There is not a set time for any public hearing except for zoning hearings, which are 8 per side, but the council can set a hearing. You have total discretion to give whatever time you want to each person.
Okay, then let's keep it at the 3 minutes for consistency.
Okay.
Thank you. Joselle Torres?
Yep, I'm here. Hello.
Hi. If you could just speak up a little. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Joselle Torres. I live at 1004 Caspin Street, and I am here representing the Tarboro Road Community Center and Raleigh Bike Polo, respectively. I think Melanie did a really great job advocating for what this community center has done for ourselves and for our cycling community as a whole. And I think that if we were to look at what a multi-use sport court and what the funds for the Tarboro Road Community Center could do for that area, specifically that downtown, eastern part of downtown, where we have so many families that live and exist in that area and are also moving to that area, what we could do together with the funds of this bond. We are looking to be there throughout the process and advocate for the needs of the community. We have done brunch nights, bike nights, hosted open forums for some of the folks to come out and ask us questions, and we wanted to continue to engage in that way so we can get their input of what a sport court could look like. There are many other sports that use a facility like this, including roller hockey, high-speed football, roller derby, and many others. So it wouldn't be solely dedicated to the use of our club. We would be able to expand that to a lot of great alternative and grassroots sports in the area. I think that also will be able to showcase what Raleigh has. Melanie also mentioned that there was an international bike polo tournament that was interested in coming specifically to the Southeast region. We have traveled to Canada, Mexico, Puerto Rico. There have been players from Australia, Germany, Bristol, Colombia. They come for this sport specifically. And if we were to have a facility that could house these international and national players, we'd be able to gain recognition as Raleigh in the Southeast to be a grassroots sport corridor. We also would improve the community in the area and the property in that area by giving back to those that live there. And I think that outside of that, we would be able to advocate for that, alongside what the city would like to do and what the planner, the project planner, and also the director, Chris, at the Tarboro Road Community Center. Thank you so much for allowing me to speak today, and I hope you all stay safe.
Thank you very much. Okay, that's the only 2 speakers we had on this matter. I am going to close the public hearing. Now, just to be clear, there has been no determination on how to use these funds. We're just granting approval.
So, Mayor, there is some categories that are listed in your packet.
Right.
Or commitments that you previously made, and also a few categories where you've allocated the money in categories going forward. What this does is authorize us to move forward with the debt release as needed. Now, given the current market conditions, really the way to look at this is you're approving the choice so that we can move forward as needed. if we were to make any changes to capital projects and things, we could pull things off the table or choose not to move forward. But the timeline requires us to get that approval from you at this point. So, for example, some of the items that are in this particular 2/3 bonds is the $3.3 million for John Chavis Park. You remember that additional allocation you voted on last fall, or some of you voted on, excuse me. Some were on the council at the time, some were not, to help close the gap on the construction of phase 1 of Chavis Park. You've also got the Crabtree Creek Greenway, that emergency construction of the Greenway project that was damaged by several of the storms are in there. You got a small bridge replacement, some generators at police facilities, as well as an emergency vehicles operations course design for the fire department. And then you have some unassigned categories such as street improvements. That was the discussion about adding some in the street improvements, as well as money for some affordable housing projects if you would so choose. And you may recall you heard a proposal potentially to use some of that money, even though you haven't allocated it yet. So this is really about authorizing the staff to be able to release the debt if you move forward with the project. Is fine.
Councillor Cox?
Yes, I'm comfortable with releasing the money. I think given the economic situation that we're in right now, I'm not comfortable about making commitments to any particular category.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. And we have talked about that. I think if you look at the list that is in the allocation of the 2/3 bond, I think as a practical matter, when we go through the budget balancing exercise, which is going to be tough for all of us, some of the items on that list will need to go forward, such as the Chavis Park Phase 1. That was obviously very critical, but it's also a project that's already underway, so we wouldn't recommend any changes to that. But then there's some components of this allocation which we'll probably need to pull back because you've got flexibility. So the way to think about it is there's some discretion there, and when we get to the capital budget, we'll show you the list of things that we're going to pull back on, and some of these items may not be able to go forward. But at this time, it's hard to pull them out individually from the total context of all of the capital budget choices you're going to have to make. So for several of these, like that unassigned street improvements, perhaps some of that affordable housing money, those are items you're going to have to reconsider probably. And then some of the other projects are high priority and you've already committed to, you probably will go forward. So I think it's you're going to have to probably relook at this list when we go to capital planning.
That's going to come back to us anyhow for approval.
For several of these, yes. Now, I'll go ahead and say that for the John Chavis Park and the Crabtree Creek Greenway restoration, those are under design, or in the Chavis, case, moving, that was a construction contract. So on that spectrum of capital projects, it's farther along. So for some of them, they won't come back on the list because they're
underway,
eligible for pulling it back without a really big problem, which we wouldn't recommend, if that makes sense. But
yep.
So for several of those, I'm making it kind of answering the question here, that unassigned street improvements and the affordable housing, perhaps some of those public safety facilities would be under consideration. I think the Chavis Park and that Greenway would move forward without it coming back. We're going to do that.
Councillor Buffkin and then Councillor Knight.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm ready to make a motion to approve this matter when at the appropriate time.
Okay, I think Councillor Knight did you have a question?
Yeah, so whoever the staff is that is directing this, I just want to clarify, in the write-up here, it does talk about that the recommendation is to use, if we do go forward with these, if we do go forward with these projects, to use bond and anticipation notes as opposed to 2/3 general obligation bond. So just want to get that, just a little clarification from the staff on that that the difference in those in the financial sense and a practical sense.
Sure. I'll ask Allison Bradsher, our Chief Financial Officer, to talk about that. I will say, from previous experience, use of bond anticipation notes, which are called bands shorthand, is a creative and flexible way to get into the debt market when it's volatile, like current conditions, without making a longer term commitment. So, but Allison, if you could explain that, that'd be helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, and good evening, everyone. And actually, the city manager did a really nice job. Think of the bands really as being similar to a line of credit. And so just given where the markets are today, and quite frankly have been, and just how we're not sure what the future is going to hold, really this is a line of credit that we're able to draw on. And these are very commonly used here in North Carolina and throughout the U.S., and Raleigh in the past has used this as well. So it's different than going ahead and taking out the full amount, which is how we would generally do it. But it is the bands associated with the 2/3.
And if I could, Mr. Knight, add to that, the bond anticipation notes, or the bands, allow you the short-term flexibility of figuring out when you then want to make the debt more long-term permanent. So it's kind of like short-term versus long-term financing. And then when the market stabilizes, then we would bundle that debt issue into a longer-term debt item when we have more confidence about when we want to go out into the market.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. And so you can proceed in the same way and form and timing with a band than you can with the 2/3 bond obligation.
So the bands are shorter term,
right?
2 years, 3 years max, or whatever. And when you talk about a general obligation bond debt issue, that's usually that 25 to 30 year term. So it has to do with the time, the amount of the term of the debt. And it just allows you to cash flow your project needs without locking at a point when it may be volatile. Now, the opposite could be true. Something could turn in the market, and then we would just go ahead and go straight into a long-term debt issue if the market is in a better position. So that's what this gives us, is you're basically giving Allison the choice to maximize our position when we need to be in the market. And we have a treasurer, and we have some bond counsel. We've got folks that watch the market and help us with that. So we kind of know when to lock us down at the most favorable opportunity.
Okay.
Cox.
So I'm not entirely clear to what extent, after we vote on this, when it would come back to council for further approval in terms of spending on what category.
So the answer to that would be as a part of the approval of the capital budget. So, for example, let's just use the John Chavis Park example. That's an additional allocation of debt for a construction project that's already been approved. So that $3.3 million that the council voted on last year was to provide funding for the completion of the John Chavis Park, and we've issued a construction contract for that. So that one's gonna move forward. Council also approved in the capital budget the Crabtree Creek Greenway, and that's in design, and then gonna move that one forward. What I'm talking about where the other ones come back are items where you might amend or change your capital budget in the upcoming budget process, which is really in the next about 6 weeks. And if you were to amend the capital budget to take some of this out, then we obviously wouldn't go into the market.
Would we be going forward with Chavis and the Greenway if we did not pass this?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Would we be going forward with Chavis and the Greenway project if we did not approve the bonds?
If you didn't approve this particular item, then we would have to, unless you amended the capital project for Chavis, have to find another way to go find debt issue to pay for the project, because you've already approved the budget and the construction contract to finish it, and this was just the financing mechanism. So, then you'd have to say, well, we want to stop construction on the project. I don't think anybody would want to do that. You certainly could, That comes with all kinds. I mean, different projects are at different points when you can stop or slow or defer a project. Chavis is well on its way. So I'm only using that as an example of project moving forward. You could choose to slow the Crabtree Creek Greenway if you wanted to, because I don't believe it started construction yet. But that's, at least the previous council indicated that was a very high priority. And so that's 5.8 million of those two projects are 5.8 million of this particular issue. The other categories are more flexible. And that's what I think you're going to be talking about over the next 6 weeks.
Okay, Councilor Branch.
And just so y'all know, this is for phase 1 of Chavis. That this helps with phase 1, not the overall project. And I move for approval of the 2/3 bond orders.
I think there's a specific motion that needs to be made. Am I correct on that?
Yes, you should have a copy of that, and
I think
Patrick, you got a copy of that?
Patrick has a copy. Patrick, you can read it.
Buffkin,
I have it.
were you going to make a motion?
Yes, Mayor, I'm ready when you are.
I think we're ready.
All right, thank you, Mayor. I move that the council adopt each of the actions recommended and described by the staff in the agenda item on the 2/3 bond orders.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Councilor Branch has seconded that, clerk. All in favor? Raise your hands. Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Thank you. Next, we have a street name change, SNC 01 2020 Tryon Road, portion of that, the arts. I'm going to open up the public hearing. Does anybody have any questions on this? Okay, I don't believe we don't have anybody who has called in about this, so I'm going to close the public hearing. Can I have a motion for approval? Councilor Martin has made a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Councilor Melton has seconded that. All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, unanimous, clerk. The street name change, SNC 02 2020 Tryon Road, Broomfield Hunter Lane. Nobody is here to speak on that either. I will open the hearing. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, I'm going to close the hearing. Would someone like to make a motion? Councilor Martin has made a motion to approve. Second? Councilor Melton has seconded this. Okay, all in favor, raise your hands. Anyone opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. Our next item is rezoning Z3219 Sunnybrook Road, the east side between its intersections with Carl Sandburg Court and Sungate. I believe we have somebody here who wants to speak on this in support. That would be Worth Mills.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council.
Can I open the hearing first?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to open the hearing. And there is nobody opposed to this on the call. So if you could do a brief presentation, that would be great.
Absolutely. So again, good evening, Mayor, members of council. This is Worth Mills with Longleaf Law Partners, 2235 Gateway Access Point, Suite 201, here on behalf of the applicant for this rezoning. This is a rezoning of 4 parcels totaling 3.26 acres along the eastern side of Sunnybrook Road. We are proposing a rezoning from R6 to OX3 parking limited conditional use. A couple of items that I want to highlight. Firstly, this rezoning was deemed consistent with the comprehensive plan overall. received a positive vote at the ECAC at 7-2, and it received unanimous approval from Planning Commission before it arrived at your desk. Although the rezoning was deemed inconsistent with the future land use map, we believe that it is a effective land use transition from the residential on the western side of Sunnybrook, and we believe that it's more compatible with the surrounding land uses. So the future land use map identifies it as office and research and development, which does not allow for housing, but the OX district is consistent with the large swath of property around us, and we feel it's the appropriate land transition from that R6 property across the street. So with that, if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer them for you. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? Okay. Is the clerk raising her hand?
Yes, I had received a letter of support from Jeff Brandeis, who is with CASA and is a property owner within 500 feet, and he wanted his show of support to be read.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? Questions? Okay, I'm going to close the hearing. Councilor Branch, this is your district. I see you with your hand raised.
Yes, and I've had some conversations. I've received no negative feedback from anyone in the community directly, and I think with CASA support and everything, I moved to adopt the proposed consistency statement dated April 7th, 2020, contained in the agenda materials, and to approve the zoning amendment. This approval is also deemed an amendment to the future land use map to the extent described in the adopted consistency statement.
Second.
Who seconded? Okay, Councilor Cox. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Unanimous, clerk. Okay, our next case is rezoning Z44, Gresham Lake Road and Litchford Road, west of Nicholas Road, in District A.
Mayor, this is Ruffin. I just didn't know if you would like a few slides from the staff before hearing this particular case. That's certainly up to you.
Okay, if staff, is the applicant going to also do a presentation? Do we know if the applicant is doing a presentation?
This is Robin. I don't know if Beth Trejos is on the mic yet. This is our one case where we have speakers in favor and against.
Okay, let's hear briefly from staff, please.
Planning and Development. This is a request to rezone just under 16 acres from R4 to R10 with conditions. The conditions limit density to just over 5 units an acre. It is consistent with the comprehensive plan. The North CAC does not endorse this request, but the Planning Commission does. You can see the site here. So we're on the south side of Gresham Lake, west of 540, and surrounded predominantly by residential. A couple of views of the site. And there are a handful of conditions here. So that, again, that limit on the number of units, the apartment building type is prohibited. There are a handful of conditions here related to buffering and also a requirement about sidewalk on Nichols Road to Carruthers. This image shows you where the buffering is required, where those transitions are required. So in orange, they're providing a 10-foot landscaping buffer and fence. In blue, in that blue area, they're providing a 50-foot setback, and the green area, a 10-foot landscaped area along Nichols. And then that purple shows you, or the dark blue shows you the extension of the sidewalk that they're offering. And then just look at how the entitlement here is changing. So a modest change to the setback, the side setback, it could be as little as 0 feet, but they've offered a number of conditions to address that in several places. The density per acre goes up incrementally, and the maximum total units goes up from 62 to 80. Can I answer questions?
Do we have any questions? I cannot see anybody with this up, so I don't know if we have any questions from. Do we have any questions from the council members? Okay, I'm going to open the hearing.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. This is Beth Trejos with Nelson Mullins of 4140 Park Lake Avenue. I'm here tonight on behalf of MI Homes. MI is the contract purchaser of this roughly 15.5 acre site. We are proposing to build 80 homes. The zoning increases the density by 18 units. We are requesting R10 conditional use district because of the flexibility it allows in terms of lot size and setback. We have included a number of conditions, increasing the amount of open space by 10%, such that there would be 30% of the site used for open space, amenity areas, tree conservation areas. We have provided for a 10-foot planted buffer with a 6-foot fence adjacent to existing residential neighbors, as well as providing for the off-site extension of sidewalk along Nichols Road to facilitate pedestrian movement along Nichols. As your staff said, we do comply with the comprehensive plan and the future land use map. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval, and we are hopeful that you will approve our rezoning this evening. I would tell you Travis Fluitt is also signed up to speak. He is an engineer with Kimley Horn. He signed up just in case you had any questions about traffic.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions about for Beth or about traffic? Okay, let's set the timer or reset the timer. I have one person who would like to speak who is opposed to this, Michael Mitchell.
We do not have him on. He did not dial in.
Councilor Buffkin, I know you had spoken with him.
Yes, Mayor, I have been talking with some of the neighbors that live on Carruthers. I had not been speaking with the gentleman you mentioned and had expected someone else to be joining us on the call tonight. We have been talking for quite a while, and as you can see, there's been a good deal of progress made with the conditions. I can tell you that in the conversations, the most recent conversations with the neighbors, they've expressed appreciation for those conditions that have been added to the case. However, they remain concerned about the number of houses that are proposed to be sited on this lot and the impact to traffic. And it might be helpful to hear from the gentleman from Kimley Horn on traffic, maybe just a broad overview of what the analysis showed. I can tell you in the short time I've represented this district that traffic is bad on Litchford Road, and it's got a profile of a country road, and the city has grown out to that area now, and it is bad, and it's something I want to see improved. I just don't see a way to do it with this rezoning case. But Mayor, maybe some input from the traffic engineer would be helpful at this point.
Okay. Could we have Travis Blewett give us a brief overview on what you found in your traffic analysis?
Certainly. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. So Travis Blewett with Kinley Horn Associates, 421 Fayetteville Street, Suite 600, Raleigh. So we did not perform a full traffic impact analysis. One was not required with the rezoning. The increase in units by 18 results in a very nominal amount of additional traffic, only about 13 a.m. peak hour trips and 18 p.m. peak hour trips, which falls way below the thresholds for requiring a TIA in the city. And in fact, the entire development itself, the 80 townhomes, still falls well below the thresholds. Only about half, maybe 2/3 to half of the traffic that would be required for requiring a TIA. And we've had coordination with city staff in regards to that. We've also had some discussions with them about traffic on Nichols Road in particular. I won't speak for the neighbors, but it's my understanding that their main concern was about cut-through traffic on Nichols Road between Litchford and Gresham Lake. City staff went out, performed a traffic count at the intersection of Nichols Road and Gresham Lake Road, and what they found was that the volumes on Nichols are quite low. The AM and PM peak hour traffic volumes, the two-way volume on Nichols Road is less than the 150 PM peak hour trips in either the AM or the PM peak hours. So a very low volume. There is an all-way stop at the intersection of Nichols and Carruthers Court. And I believe one of their concerns is that people on Nichols do not stop, or at least some people are not adhering to that stop sign and blow through the stop sign, and that was one of their concerns. However, we do not expect the traffic from this development will add significantly to that problem. There are multiple ways in and out of the development, proposed access on Litchford, Gresham Lake, and Nichols. And with the minimal amount of traffic we're projecting, it should be able to distribute pretty well, easily between all those access points, and therefore we do not expect any traffic issues as a result of this development. I'd be happy to answer any questions on any of that.
Are there any questions? Councillor Cox?
My question isn't about traffic. I did have a question about, I'd like to get some clarification about stormwater. What are we doing as far as stormwater?
So the typical stormwater regulations of the UDO would apply here. They've not offered nothing above that.
Do we have any other questions? Councilor Buffkin?
Thank you, Mayor. I wonder if Ms. Trejos maybe could help us out, maybe if she's had any recent contact with the neighbors. Should we have been expecting them to be able to participate tonight? At least one person signed up, and I'm a little concerned that maybe they were not able to reach us, or maybe some technical difficulties.
Well, that would be a question for Beth Stagner. Beth, did the person...
The gentleman that Councilmember Buffkin provided his name was not someone who had signed up on the online form, so we did not hear him. And the one person that did sign up opposed, Michael Mitchell, has not gotten on this call at all or responded to the invite.
Beth, this is Robin. We, or probably Bonham, we actually mailed letters to under the UDO about this hearing as well. Isn't that correct?
That is correct, and posted notice as well, and an advertisement in the News and Observer. The mailed notice would have gone within 500 feet.
and with instructions to go to the website to find out how to remotely participate. So I just wanted to let everyone know that it was, that they did actually mail letters.
That's correct.
Councilor Buffkin?
Well, Mayor and members of council, I have been in touch with the neighbors relatively recently, and I think I understand fully where they are, and this has been a good process. It's been productive dialogue. I think the neighbors have participated in good faith, and the project owner has offered as much conditions as they can to address the concerns. And so, Mayor, I'll be prepared to make a motion to adopt the proposed consistency statement at the appropriate time.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, I'm going to close the hearing. Councilor Buffkin, if you'd like to make that motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to adopt the proposed consistency statement dated April 7, 2020, contained in the agenda materials, and to approve the zoning amendment.
Do we have a second? Councilor Stewart? Okay, here we go then. Who's in, all in favor? Okay. Anyone opposed? Councilor Cox is opposed. So that's a 7-1 vote with Councilor Cox opposed. Clerk has that? Okay. The next is rezoning Z4519 West South Street. I have two people who have signed up, David Brown and Benjamin Kuhn. Is staff going to be showing or giving a brief presentation on this? Is staff going to be doing a brief presentation on this?
This is Councilor Martin. I don't believe so. I've been in touch with the applicant, and my understanding was it was just them, but I could be wrong.
Okay, I'm just trying to get an idea whether staff is going to do a quick review of this project.
A couple slides here for you if you would like.
Sure.
Great. So this is a request to rezone just under an acre from NX3 with an urban limited frontage to NX4 with the same frontage and some new conditions. The request is consistent with the comprehensive plan and the future land use map. The Planning Commission recommends approval. The CAC did not choose to put this on their agenda before they stopped meeting. So you can see this is at the southwest corner of West South and South Saunders Street. There has been development in progress, grading here, and a view of the site currently. There are a handful of prohibited uses here, and then also some specifications about what materials will be prohibited and what will be allowed. And then you can see the change in entitlement here. So the residential density, the units per acre is going up. You have a maximum number of 108 units if that's the only use there. And then you can see a couple of scenarios of a blend of uses. Just generally, the entitlement is increasing modestly because of the increase in height.
Okay.
Nope, I'm done. Thank you. Can I answer questions?
Okay, Councilor Cox.
Was there a CAC vote with this?
No, sir. The CAC did not include this on an agenda before they stopped meeting. They had the opportunity, but did not include it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I am going to open the public hearing. As I said, I had two people listed, David Brown and Benjamin Kuhn, either on the phone.
Hi, this is Ben Kuhn. David is unable to be with us due to a death in the family.
Sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
Ben, is there anything that you would like to say?
Not significantly. It's a fairly straightforward rezoning request seeking to add one story primarily due to some of the issues associated with the brownfield, and which required that we put more parking underneath that increased the amount of parking. That essentially we would overpark the space with 3 stories. This is obviously in the downtown area, in close contact, close proximity within a quarter mile of transit, Union Station, Rush Bus, the future BRT area. I will say in terms of public engagement, we did reach out significantly for public engagement. In November, we met with the Boylan Heights neighborhood. The case was not controversial there. There was no second visit that was deemed necessary or requested. We had our neighborhood notice meeting in December, and then we did present the case to the CAC in January 2020, so they did see the case and understand the case and ask very relevant, important questions. No one expressed opposition. As Ms. Walters outlined, we did offer the opportunity to go back to the CAC in February and/or March, but they did not meet or request us back. We did have a planning commission hearing, and the public hearing. No one showed up in opposition, and the matter was recommended approval with a unanimous vote for the various reasons outlined in the staff report and the comprehensive plan policies outlined in there. We believe it's consistent with the comprehensive plan, consistent with the future land use map and the urban form map, compatible, and we believe in the public interest warrants your vote for approval of this rezoning. Of course, if you have any questions, please let me know.
Hey, does anybody have any questions of the applicant? Okay, I'm going to close the hearing. Councilor Martin?
Thank you, Mayor. This is in my district, and so I am prepared to make the motion to approve.
Do you have to read a consistency statement?
I do. So I move to adopt the proposed consistency statement dated April 7th, 2020, contained in the agenda materials, and to approve the zoning amendment.
Okay. Second by Councilor Melton. Okay. You have that, clerk? Okay. All in favor, raise your hands. Any opposed? Councilor Cox is opposed, so that's 7-1. Okay. Next, we have rezoning Z4919, Quarry Road and Sunnybrook Road. Do we have a brief staff report on that? I know Isabel Maddox is signed up and to give a presentation. How do we want?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Maddox has a presentation, and I have a handful of slides if that's helpful to you.
Okay, you want to run through that quickly?
Of course. So this is a request to rezone just over 14 acres from R6 with the SHOD to RX4 with a parking limited frontage, some conditions, and the SHOD remains. The request is consistent with the comprehensive plan. The Planning Commission and the South CAC both recommend approval. You can see the site here at the northwest corner of Sunnybrook and Rock Quarry. There's a church adjacent. The church owns the property to the west and the north, and then a lot at the corner that's not under control by the applicant. And you can see that the density per acre would increase significantly, and the maximum number of units would go up as well, and they could have a very limited amount of office or retail use on the ground floor in a corner unit. So that's what I can offer you, and if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Do we have any questions of staff? Okay, I will invite, I will open the hearing and ask Isabel Maddox to present.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Isabel Maddox here on behalf of South Creek Development, LLC. Tonight, thank you, counselors, for being here and patiently working through this virtual or electronic meeting. Much appreciated. As Bynum expressed, this is a rezoning for 7 parcels totaling approximately 14 acres located at the intersection of Rock Quarry and Sunnybrook Roads. South Creek Development is an affordable housing developer which has developed affordable housing in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. We propose to go from R6 with a SHOD 1 to R X4 PLCU with SHOD 1. So we're increasing one story of height. We'll keep keeping the SHOD. We're adding the parking limited frontage on this case. Was unanimously recommended by the Planning Commission. We also went to 2 meetings at the South CAC and received a positive vote. The proposal is for development of 192 units, family affordable units in 6 buildings for families owning 50, 60, and 70% of AMI. There'll be a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. Just my conceptual site plan here shows the 6 buildings, shows the layout of the buildings. The traffic analysis done, or actually just trip generation done, compared the trip generation between the current entitlement, which is R6, if fully developed, to this, and it really did not increase by a significant amount. I think it was an increase of about 25 trips in the AM peak and 20 trips in the PM peak. This case is consistent with the future land use map, comp plan as a whole, and the urban form map. And we believe it's reasonable in the public interest as it will facilitate the development of 192 affordable housing units, adding to the housing supply. It adds density in a location served by transit and in close proximity to good services, schools, and city parks. There will be an improvement of pedestrian infrastructure in that there will be sidewalks added as needed along Rock Quarry and Sunnybrook Road. Certainly available to answer any questions that you might have.
Mayor, you muted.
Thank you. There's another person listed speaking in support, and that's Charlie Heritage. Is he part of the project team?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
Yes. Hey, this is Charlie. Sorry, Isabel. This is Charlie Heritage. Yes, I'm one of the partners over at South Creek Development, and I'm just here to answer any questions you may have, and just really appreciate y'all working with us and still having this hearing tonight.
Hey, thank you. All right, so I'm going to ask if there are any questions. Bynum?
I know that the clerk had correspondence from a citizen about this case.
I'm sorry, what did you ask?
You had correspondence from a citizen about this case?
I don't think so.
I believe you had an email from Yasmin Fazard expressing concern that the public hearing was being held virtually.
You are correct. Do you by chance have it with you? It came in late this afternoon.
I don't have it in front of me. I'm sorry.
If you'll give me a minute, I will get it for you. Or she was just in opposition and concerned that it was being done virtually and she couldn't be here.
Okay.
Here, I have it before me now. My name is Yasim Fazard, located at 2224 Sunnybrook Road. My neighbor, Glenda Daniel, located at 2214 Sunnybrook Road, and I oppose the rezoning. We think it is not fair to us to have this rezoning case during the COVID-19 virus happening. We're concerned that the density of the population at the intersection of Rock Quarry Road and Sunnybrook Road could increase by 500 to 600 people. Thank you, Bynum.
Do we have any other comments, questions? Okay, I'm going to close the hearing.
So, Madam Mayor, this one's in my district, and I do know that there was concerns about traffic in this area. A lot of that has to do with the Walnut Creek Amphitheater. I'm sorry, the Coastal Federal Amphitheater of the street, and things of that nature, as well as widening of the road, which are projects that are actually currently in place. As far as from this property towards the Southeast Raleigh High School, DMV, NCDOT is currently working on that widening of the road. But I think with the overwhelming support from the CAC, you know, it was a 16-5 vote, but it was an 8-0 vote in approval as well from the Planning Commission. I've reached out. This opposition is the first I've actually heard other than traffic. So I move to adopt the proposed consistency statement dated April 7th, 2020, containing the agenda materials, and to approve the zoning amendment.
Do we have a second? Councilor Knight has seconded that. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, that's unanimous approval. Thank you. Our next rezoning is Z220 1315 Jones Franklin Road.
This is just under 3 acres. The request is to go from R4 with a special residential parking overlay district to OX3 with conditions and the same overlay district. There we go. So the West CAC voted in favor to recommend approval. The Planning Commission also recommends approval. You can see here that the site is immediately adjacent to the next case on the agenda. So we have 2 separate private applicants pursuing similar requests. This is just on the east side of Jones Franklin, south of US 1 and I-440. You can see that there's multifamily on the west side of Jones Franklin here. The same conditions are offered in this request and the next one. They're prohibiting certain uses and drive-throughs, requiring a 75-foot building setback from the property to the east, limiting commercial uses, limiting office, veterinary, and personal service uses to no more than 35,000 square feet, and limiting the residential density. And so the net effect here is a increase in residential density per units per acre, going up from 4 to 14, maximum units of 39 on this particular parcel. You see an increase in office and retail allowance, and the setbacks change modestly. What questions can I answer for you about this one?
I cannot see anybody on the screen, so have to ask that the, yes, thank you. Does anybody have any questions on this? Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing. I have here listed Pamela Porter, who would like to speak in support of this. Is Pamela on the line?
I'm actually here to speak about the next rezoning case.
Okay.
1321 Jones Franklin. That's okay. That's okay.
Okay, we'll get you in a moment. Thank you. So no one has any questions. There's nobody speaking on this. So I am
Mayor Chad.
What?
I do have Chad Essick on the line.
Okay, I don't have him listed, so sorry. So Chad is there?
Yes, Mayor, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, Mayor. Member of City Council Chad Essick, corner Sproul, 301 Fayetteville Street, Suite 1900. I'm here this evening on behalf of the applicant, Crossroads Veterinary Properties. Not on the line, but perhaps out there in the virtual world listening is Dr. Sandy Albright, who has owned and operated the Crossroads Veterinary Hospital for 31 years. That's just north of this site at 1112 Jones Franklin Road. She has purchased this site, which is just down the street on the east side of Jones Franklin Road, with the intent of expanding and relocating her veterinary practice to this site. Bynum's done a nice job of summarizing the request, so I won't be duplicative. I don't know where the zoning map is. I had a presentation, but the property just north of this site is zoned OX3 as well, and has an office building located on it that has an engineering firm there. That site was rezoned in 2013, also from R4 to OX3, and our zoning conditions that we're proposing on this site are very similar to that rezoning case. You'll see to the east of this site is R10 zoning. That's the Wildwoods of Lake Johnson Apartments. To the west is RX3 zoning. That's the Centerview of Crossroads Apartments. And to the south, as Bynum noted, that parcel, small parcel to the south, is it's the subject of Z5219. That's going to be heard next. As you'll see, this corridor along Jones Franklin between I-440 and I-40, there's a fair amount of OX zoning that's along this corridor. The staff has deemed this to be consistent with the overall comprehensive plan. While the future land use map calls for moderate density residential, we think the OX is appropriate given the existing built out conditions and kind of how Jones Franklin has developed in the surrounding area. We did put a zoning condition on the case that limits dwelling units to 14 units per acre, which is consistent with the future land use map's guidance on density for residential development. And as Bynum noted, a number of other conditions that we placed on the case. We did go to the CAC in January and returned in February and received a vote 14 in favor and 0 opposed, and the Planning Commission has recommended unanimously approval. So we would respectfully ask that the council take action and approve this rezoning request. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Chad. Councilor Martin, do you have a question?
No, I this is in my district, so at the appropriate time, I'm ready to read the consistency statement.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. Councilor Martin?
I move to adopt the proposed consistency statement dated April 7th, 2020, contained in the agenda materials, and to approve the zoning amendment. This approval is also deemed an amendment to the future land use map to the extent described in the adopted consistency statement.
Do we have a second? Councilor Branch seconded that, clerk? Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. The next case is Z5219. Next door, as we just said, 1321 Jones Franklin Road.
That's right. Their conditions are the same. The location is almost identical, and the change in entitlement is comparable. Can I answer questions about this one?
I can't see if anybody wants to ask a question. With the virtual podium up, I can't. Does anybody wish to ask a question on this? Okay. I'm going to open the hearing. We will now hear from Pamela Porter on if she's still on the line.
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Fantastic. Pam Porter with TMTLA Associates, 5011 South Park Drive in Durham. Good evening, Ms. Mayor and members of the council. I am here on behalf of the applicant, who is Oak City Capital. And as Chad mentioned, for the rezoning that you all just approved, ours is very similar. We're going to OX3CU just as that other parcel that is going to be rezoned to. And we had a favorable CAC vote It was 9-4, and we had a unanimous recommendation for approval by Planning Commission. And I know it's getting late, so I won't repeat anything. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Does anybody have any questions? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. Councilor Martin?
I'm ready to read the consistency statement for this case.
Okay.
I move to adopt the proposed consistency statement dated April 7th, 2020, contained in the agenda materials, and to approve the zoning amendment. This approval is also deemed an amendment to the future land use map to the extent described in the adopted consistency statement.
Do we have a second? Councilor Knight has seconded that. All in favor? Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we have our last rezoning of the evening of our first public hearings virtually. This is rezoning Z320, 4102, 4108 Virtuous Street, south of the intersection of Jones Sausage Road and Generosity. And that's Elizabeth Maddox again. And staff, do you have some slides you would like to review with us?
Just a few. So this is a request to rezone just under 4 acres from industrial mixed use with a 3-story height limit. They're increasing the height limit to 5 and adding conditions. This is consistent with the comprehensive plan. The Planning Commission and the South CAC both unanimously recommend approval. You can see that the zoning in this area is exclusively industrial mixed use and heavy industrial. And you can see here we are on the south side of Jones Sausage, as you mentioned, Madam Mayor. And then the one condition here you want to be aware of is that they've prohibited a handful of uses, so dormitories, fraternities, that sort of thing, passenger terminals, and the like. And then the change in entitlement here is a significant increase in residential units, a modest increase in office square footage, and then they've held the retail is not changing, but the industrial square footage goes up significantly. What questions can I answer before you hear from the applicant?
Again, I can't see. Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Ms. Maddox, you're up.
Okay, good evening again. I'm here this time on behalf of First Carolina Management, Inc., which is a hotel developer and hotel management company. They operate numerous hotels in North Carolina and throughout the Southeast. This property is projected as a 122-room Spring Hill Suites. This location was selected because of its proximity to the new Amazon distribution facility on the Garner side of I-40 in downtown Raleigh, as well as a good road network in the area. We are seeking to rezone to add a little bit of height, fairly small site, and again, the objective is a hotel. This area is a mix of commercial uses. There are several restaurants in the area. There are several industrial uses, Gregory Pool Equipment. There's, I think, a Speedway gas and convenience store. There's a Bojangles and a Smithfield Barbecue and a Burger King. So they're not really, we had our neighborhood meeting, no one showed up, but that's because there really are no residential neighbors in proximity. They're, it's consistent with the future land use map. It's deemed consistent with the comprehensive plan overall and compatible with the neighborhood. The access we would propose would be to come off Virtuous Street, and there would not be any access on Jones Sausage. Our boundary with Jones Sausage is mostly a shod yard, and we would keep the shod yard in place. We did attend 2 South CAC meetings, and the CAC voted strongly in favor of approval. I think it was a unanimous vote. We believe that this area, Raleigh needs hotel rooms, in this area in particular. And with the COVID virus, the Amazon distribution facility shall be well needed. Certainly available for any questions that you guys might have.
Okay, any questions of Ms. Maddox from council members? Okay, with that, I'm going to close the hearing. And I have a low battery on my computer. So I am asking, do we have a motion to approve?
So this is in my district, Madam Mayor. There's definitely nothing around there about a Pepsi way. So Pepsi does have a distribution center close by, but I moved to, and the CAC approved this 27-0. I move to adopt this proposed consistency statement dated April 7th, 2020, contained in the agenda materials, and to approve the zoning amendment.
Second.
I have a second. Councilor Cox has seconded that, clerk. All in favor? Opposed? No opposition. Okay. Well, before my computer dies, I just want to thank everybody for making this virtual meeting happen today and this evening. The staff has worked extraordinarily hard to make this happen. Thank you very much. Our next meeting will be May 5th. Councilor Branch?
Yeah, and I know, just to be brief, I want to mention that for Z2319, we technically still have that hearing open. I know we moved it to May 5th, but we actually had that first hearing back in February. So just keep in mind that that hearing is actually still open.
Oh, okay. That's the
Strickland Road.
Strickland Road. Mm-hmm. Yes, and that has been deferred to May 5th.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Any other business? Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.